It's a mystery that has baffled the Columbia Police Department. For more than a decade, they and community members asking the question, what happened to Amir Jennings? It's a question we wondered ourselves here at WACH FOX. So for the past year, we've researched and conducted several interviews. We've spoken with family members, law enforcement, attorneys. We even partnered with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children to help us with the case. We spoke exclusively with Jocelyn Jennings. Her daughter, Zinah Jennings, is Amir's mother and the last person to have seen him alive. Jocelyn Jennings agreed to speak with us for the first time in more than a decade about the case. It is our goal here at WACH FOX with this special Unforgotten South Carolina that someone could help solve the question, where is Amir Jennings?
My name is Jocelyn Jennings Nelson. I'm the mother of Zinah Jennings and the grandmother of Amir Jennings.
A little boy lost. Amir Jennings vanishing without a trace 13 years ago.
It's sad and also confusing because, I mean, the child can't speak for himself, so someone has to speak for him.
A community on edge, rallying around a family, crews searching, everyone hoping Amir will come home again.
He's become a part of our hearts. We put him to bed tonight after putting our own kids to bed. We tell him good night, we tell him we love him.
Less than a year after he vanished, Amir's own mother, Zinah, convicted of unlawful conduct toward a child in the case and serves 4 years in prison. Still, no sign of Amir.
So the person who knows exactly what happened to Amir, based on our investigation, is Zinah Jennings.
And all these years later, we are getting our first look at what Amir Jennings could look like today, straight from the experts.
It just has to spark recognition in somebody that knows the child and says, you know what, I think I know who this is.
And for the first time in more than a decade, we hear from Amir's grandmother in an exclusive interview.
That child could be my family.
So do you believe he's alive?
But the question remains, where is Amir Jennings?
I mean, you're talking about an 18-month-old joyful baby that just disappears, and that's not normal.
Because it has been so long, but just, why should he be forgotten?
Just keep praying for him. He is so adorable. I mean, adorable.
It is frustrating when someone doesn't cooperate with the police and doesn't give us the information that we're seeking. But, you know, many times we expect that.
Acting on what they will only call credible information, investigators from 5 separate agencies searching a thickly wooded area off Monticello Road in North Columbia looking for anything to help them find missing Columbia toddler Amir Jennings.
Any information that comes in, we're going to follow up on. This is one piece of information that we've received, and we will continue to look for him until he's found.
Take us back to when the initial call came in that he was missing. Who reported him missing, and when did you all get the call?
Amir's grandmother, her name is Jocelyn Jennings, was the person who initially reported Zinah and Amir missing. She called the police department and ultimately spoke to me. This would have been in the fall of 2011. She called, she indicated to me that she had not seen her daughter, Zinah Jennings, and she had not seen her grandson, Amir Jennings, and was concerned.
So how long, I guess, was he missing before that call came in?
We believe that he has not been seen by video. So we've seen him on video about 2.5 weeks prior to that. So we believe that 2.5 weeks prior to her call, he actually went missing. The reason why there would be any delay that she called is she at the time believed, the grandmother believed, that Zinah and Amir were living in Atlanta, specifically in a town called East Point, which is just south of Atlanta.
When did you first get the call that something was wrong?
My son, who is Amir's father, Roderick Mitchell, we was at work, and the investigators was coming by our jobs. At that time, we was working at hunter-gatherer, and we didn't really know, well, I didn't know what was really going on, but I knew that something was wrong because they was coming by and they was asking questions about him and where he was on a certain day and at a certain time, but they didn't let us know, exactly what was going on. So I think that was around November, like right around Thanksgiving.
Mrs. Jennings' mother called me on the phone and asked me about representing her. She said, I can't find Zinah. I said, well, have you called the police? She says, yes, I've called the police, and they've really not responded. They didn't take the matter seriously. And she went on to say, and Amir is missing also, because Zinah was missing along with her son.
We started an investigation. Of course, the persons we wanted to speak to would be the persons who knew Zinah and Amir at the time, and that was going to be the grandmother who had reported him missing, as well as the sister in Atlanta. However, just about a day or so later, Jocelyn Jennings called me again, Jocelyn Jennings being the grandmother, called me again and indicated that Zinah was at her house.
So at that point, did you all inquire about Amir?
We did. So I was at home at the time. I left my house and drove over to Jocelyn Jennings' home. She lives here in Columbia, not far from Allen University. I met with Jocelyn Jennings and Zinah, and of course my question was, hey, where's your son? Where is Amir?
And what did she say?
She said that her son was with his father and that he was safe. She gave me the name of his father, which is a name that the family had never heard before, and said that she had no idea where he lived, only indicating that he had graduated from Dreer High School. Our investigation later led us, by the way, to determine that individual did not exist, and her attorney acknowledged during the trial that she had lied about that.
She never shared any information about where her son was.
We felt a loss, a great loss, because they still was not giving us any clarity about where Amir was, because it was so many conflicting stories. His mom said that he was with some man named Ernest Robinson. Then she said that he was with her mom, and then she said that he was in Atlanta with her sister. And then at one time she said that he was with my son.
Interestingly, one of the things that led Zinah's mother, Jocelyn Jennings, to report Zinah missing was because she had learned that Zinah had for some reason, had been in a one-car accident not far from where they lived. She knows that because a police officer knocked on their door looking for Zinah, asking if she was all right, because they had found her car not far away. So that started the ball rolling for Jocelyn to become increasingly concerned about her daughter and her grandson. I met with Jocelyn Jennings and Zinah, and of course my question was, hey, where's your son? Where is Amir?
And what did she say?
She said that her son was with his father and that he was safe. She gave me the name of his father, which is a name that the family had never heard before, and said that she had no idea where he lived, only indicating that he had graduated from Dreer High School. Our investigation later led us, by the way, to determine that individual did not exist, and her attorney acknowledged during the trial that she had lied about that.
So she never told you all specifically Amir is here?
She didn't lead us to any kind of conclusions as to where Amir was, except for the fact that she was the last person to see him.
When Zinah was found, she was in pretty bad shape. I wanted to establish a working relationship with her, and I didn't ask her anything about Amir. And then later on, I said, you know, Amir is missing, and of course she shut down completely.
We felt the loss, a great loss, because they still was not giving us any clarity about where Amir was, because it was so many conflicting stories. You know, his mom said that he was with some man named Ernest Robinson. Then she said that he was with her mom, and then she said that he was in Atlanta with her sister. And then at one time she said that he was with my son. And it's not like Amir is shut out of his life. I just think it's just so emotional for him. You know, sometimes we don't know how to handle our emotions. So, you know, even for him to come and do this, he couldn't have done it, you know. And he let me know that when I asked him.
Amir Jennings' biological father was very involved in this case. I consider him a victim in the case and 100% cooperative.
So you mentioned Amir's biological father. You labeled him as a victim. What do you mean by that?
He has not seen his son since 2011, and I mean that he's a victim because his son has been removed from his life and he doesn't have access to his son. I do know that he cared deeply about his son, and in the days after he went missing, he contacted Zinah looking for his son, and of course, you know, he was unable to see his son.
So when did this case take a turn for you all, and when did you all start looking at Zinah?
As soon as I realized that the story she had given about where Amir was and who he was with was not accurate, was not true, at that point we started an investigation, and we were very interested in where she had been, and of course we got forensics and information about her phone. We spoke to her friends and family. We traveled at least 3 times down to Atlanta, and we got officers in the Atlanta area to assist us in the investigation. And also police departments here locally involved in the investigation, looking for anyone who had had interaction with Zinah leading up to Amir's disappearance. What that ultimately led me to was Zinah had been at a bank on Forest Drive, and in the video, and this would have been in late November, in the video it depicts Zinah going into the bank, withdrawing money, and Amir is there with her. And no one has seen or heard from Amir since that incident, since the bank video.
Where did you all search for Amir?
We searched at different times during the investigation. We searched a forested area just north of Columbia, mostly because Zinah's cell phone had been in that area right around the same time that Amir was last seen. We had people searching for Amir, mostly by meeting with her family and friends and seeing what they knew. And we did have, as I said earlier, we had some law enforcement in the Atlanta area also assisting us with the investigation and interviewing people down there in Metro Atlanta. But you know, obviously we were not successful in locating him. One of the things I was very pleased with at the time, what we were able to get information about her phone. So she had a phone. She actually switched phones at one point during this period of time where Amir was missing. And so we were able to get information from the cell phone companies as to where Zinah was, her location. And it was very, very helpful because then we were able to determine where she had been since she left that bank and to where she started encountering people who were asking, hey, where's Amir? And she indicated that they learned that he was not with her.
during the course of the investigation, at one point, correct me if I'm wrong here, that there were some items that were found in her trunk with blood stains on it, and there was also a shovel that was involved. Take us through that investigation. What did you all exactly find?
We did find a shovel. The nature or what that shovel was used for is it's still unknown. And we eventually seized her car, which had recently been in a car accident prior to me getting involved in this case. So we were able to find her car at a tow yard, and we investigated and looked into that car and the contents of the trunk. There was a baby blanket in the rear. There was some sort of stain on the baby blanket. We don't know how that happened or how that's related to this case, but yes, that is accurate that we did find some items that were related to Zinah and Amir.
Detectives start to believe that Zinah might have done the unthinkable. Was there a significant amount of blood on that blanket?
There was not.
When you all tested it, that's when you found out it was that of Amir's?
There was a DNA analysis. I can't recall what the conclusion was at this time.
In January, Columbia police say they found a bloody blanket during a search of Jennings' car. Prosecutors say the blood is Amir's. 2 witnesses were called to the stand Wednesday, a cadaver dog handler that looked into the back seat and a crime scene investigator who took pictures of the bloody items in the trunk before sending it to a lab.
The trunk appeared to be fairly clean except for the last of the contents that I took pictures of the linen that was bundled together and put on there, and that the trunk appeared to be fairly neat.
Attorney Hemphill Pride asked a judge to bar television cameras from covering her August trial on unlawful conduct towards a child charges. He also asked a judge to throw out search warrants in the case that investigators say led to the discovery of blood in Jennings' car.
My client is not charged with killing anybody. And the inference would be that she killed the child's body was in the back of the car, and the blood stain came from the body.
Well, the police department did connect it to show that harm had come to Amir, and that Zinah quite possibly was the person that caused the harm because she had the shovel in the car and she had the blanket. A shovel in the car and a blanket with blood stains is not proof that of the crime that she was charged with.
At one point, you all arrest Zinah Jennings. Why is that?
So at the time, we arrested Zinah Jennings for a crime called unlawful conduct towards a child. That's because at that point, we had built a case when we gathered information from Zinah's family and friends, essentially for child abuse. They had relayed to us some incidents where they had seen Zinah mistreating Amir and actually mistreating another child who was a friend of the family. And so at that point, we arrested Zinah for a crime called unlawful conduct towards a child, which is essentially a child abuse charge.
Zinah, though she was the mother, had a constitutional right not to talk. And that's what she was prosecuting for, not talking, because they felt that she had a responsibility, a coexisting responsibility to cooperate with the police department to find her son. She didn't testify because I advised her that it would not be in her best interest to testify. And she took my advice. Well, the first question would have been, where is Amir? And she wasn't going to answer that, and that wouldn't have certainly gone over well with a jury.
Although we didn't hear from Zinah, who was pregnant with her second baby at the time of the trial, we heard from several people, including one of her friends who testified she feared for the safety of Amir.
She told me that she thought about throwing him out the car and continuing on the highway. I said to her at that point, it can be overwhelming. That's not something you think about. She told me sometimes it feels more than just overwhelmed.
We also heard from an officer who testified during a pretrial hearing who interacted with Zinah after her car accident.
She didn't have a job. And did you at any time ask her where her son is? I did. I asked her her again where her son was for a second time. And she gave me an address, I believe on Ridgecrest Lane. It says that he was with a family member.
Amir's father, Roderick Mitchell, also testified.
Remember the last time you saw your son?
The last time I saw my son was November the 29th.
November 29th of?
2011.
Where was he?
At Zinah's mother's house.
Jennings was taken to the hospital on the 4th day of her trial, which was on a Thursday. She gave birth to a baby girl on Friday, and that Tuesday she was back in court. Just 3 days later, the jury found her guilty of unlawful conduct towards a child, and she only served 4 years of her 10-year sentence.
As to the charge of unlawful conduct towards a child in violation of this South Carolina code, we, the jury, unanimously find the defendant guilty.
Many have wondered why Zinah has been mum about her son's disappearance and why she showed no emotions during her trial and when she was found guilty.
She was nonchalant. I mean, she was just not a person that showed any emotions at all. And she didn't seem to be upset. The only thing Zinah said to me a few times during the trial is, I need to go to the bathroom.
Zinah was stoic. She was silent. She sat next to her attorney, Hemphill Pride, during the trial and generally did not speak during the trial.
To get some possible answers, we have to go back to December 2011 when she was initially arrested. At that time, her attorney requested she be released because she was pregnant again and needed prenatal care, but she remained in jail. In January of 2012, the Richland County Probate Court ordered a Columbia psychiatrist to examine Zinah. That psychiatrist wrote in a report that Jennings is mentally ill, needs involuntary treatment. Zinah's own mother admitted in court that she needed help, pleading with the judge before the jury read Zinah's guilty verdict.
I noticed that it was difficult. I noticed that she was depressed. I noticed that my daughter needed help.
Her attorney also indicated that Zinah had been ordered to take medicine to treat symptoms of schizophrenia. WACH FOX reached out to Dr. K. Roussos Ross, the professor-in-chief in the Department of OBGYN at the University of Florida. She deals with mothers who have been diagnosed with disorders such as schizophrenia and postpartum related issues.
The vast majority of psychiatric medicines are safe to use in pregnancy. And so getting that word out for patients and for clinicians is really important, because when we leave women untreated, that's when they have exacerbation of their symptoms of depression, of anxiety, of bipolar, of schizophrenia, of whatever psychiatric diagnosis they have.
Family members tell us by the time Zinah was found guilty, she had already gone close to 2 years with no postpartum treatment or diagnosis after giving birth to Amir. According to Zinah's family, while being held at a Columbia area psychiatric facility, they believe that she suffered from postpartum psychosis.
Postpartum psychosis is a psychiatric emergency. So every patient with postpartum psychosis every time should be hospitalized in a psychiatric facility. The reason for that is because they are at danger of hurting themselves and hurting their children.
It's important to note that Dr. Roussos Ross did not treat Zinah, nor does she know anything about Zinah's case. WACH FOX reached out to her for her expert analysis on schizophrenia and other postpartum related issues.
What's very interesting is that there's a different diagnosis actually called postpartum OCD, or postpartum obsessive compulsive disorder. And this is a really important diagnosis to tease apart from postpartum psychosis. And so people with postpartum OCD will have thoughts that they just cannot get rid of. So they have these repetitive thoughts that sound very scary to them, and they're very scared to tell anybody about them. The thoughts are always really similar, actually. They are thoughts of stabbing their baby, so they don't want to be in the kitchen alone with a knife with their baby. There's thoughts of drowning their baby, so they may not want to give the baby a bath. Thoughts of running over the baby or getting in a car accident, so not want to drive with the baby. So these are all fears of, scared of something happening. And they're thoughts that the women do not want to have. And that's called ego dystonic, the thoughts that they don't want to have. Versus postpartum psychosis, which are actually ego dystonic thoughts. When they have these thoughts, they think they're right and they think they need to act on them. In addition to hospitalization, medication management is really important. And so the medications that are helpful for the treatment of postpartum psychosis are atypical antipsychotics, such as Risperdal, Seroquel, Haldol, any of those medications.
Risperdal is the same drug Zinah's attorney says that she was ordered to use back in 2012 to treat schizophrenia. Dr. Roussos-Ross says, generally speaking, if a family member notices something is different with the loved one, to try to speak up.
So I never want to put all that pressure on a family member because it's hard. But what a family member can do is say something's different, something's just not right, she's acting different than normal. And that's when to alert her OBGYN or her physician that something's not quite right. I think she needs to be seen.
In an exclusive interview, Zinah's mother, Jocelyn Jennings, agreed to sit down with WACH FOX. This is the first time she is speaking on camera about the disappearance of her grandson and her daughter Zinah in more than 10 years. Ms. Jennings, thank you for being here. Thank you. Give us your reaction when you walked into the studio.
Just a reminder of why we're here. I kind of was taken back a little bit to see Amir magnified in the way he is here in your studio.
What do you remember the most about Amir?
I remember most about Amir. He was quiet, but always had a little smile. He was a gentle, he was a good little boy. Not real active for a toddler. He loved me.
You talked about him loving you. Whenever he would walk in or you would walk into the room, what would happen?
His eyes would light up. Yes, and when I'd call his name, he'd come running. So he knew who I was.
If you could describe your grandson to someone who never heard of Amir, how would you describe him?
Well, that's a difficult question because he was just 2. But I would say a fine little boy, beautiful complexion, would have had a bright smile. I was looking forward to a bright smile, hearty appetite.
Tell us about your daughter.
Zinah, my only child. As a mother, and I wanted to raise her in a middle-class family environment. Took dance lessons and, went to private school, St. Martin de Porres here in the Columbia community. Attended School District 1 schools. Very social, very active in school. She was an athlete. Color guard at Dreer for 4 years, gospel choir, member, 2 different choirs.
So she was a singer.
She was a singer. She was on the gospel choir at St. Martin de Porres, and it was very easy for her to join a community choir. She enjoyed double dutch in Martin Luther King Park. She was AAU basketball. So she had a pretty well-rounded childhood and teen life and prepared. Very gentle spirit, very respectful. There is absolutely no way that at that time, and hopefully there's been some improvements, but there was no way that law enforcement could have been prepared or even sensitive to the woman in front of them. All they know is that they received a call, there's a child out there, the mother is not stating where she left him. But what I know for sure is that she felt like she was leaving him in a safe place. The items that were left in her car when she had an accident, she totaled that car. Those items, there was no baby blanket, and the blanket that was used during her trial was actually my blanket. It was a king size comforter.
The authorities said at that time that there was some there was blood stains that belonged to Amir.
You know, I doubt that was the case. I'm not certain as to if that was thoroughly investigated, but my guess is that it, and first of all, it was a splatter. It was not a soaking or, it wasn't, it could have been hers, her blood. She was sleeping in her car, her and Amir. 12 years ago, the community itself knows so much more about mental health. Mm-hmm. And law enforcement and the community at large. It's unfortunate for Zinah, really, because while she could have been getting some help, she was serving a 10-year sentence.
As you know, WACH FOX, we have been really focusing on your grandson for years. And we traveled to the headquarters of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children in Alexandria, Virginia. And a forensic artist was able to create an age progression photo of Amir.
Oh, wow.
And what Amir would look like today if he is alive. Would you like to see that photo?
Of course. You mean like right now?
Yes, like right now. We're gonna put it up on a screen for you.
Okay. It's a goal. It's something that I've wanted. There used to be a picture on the website. Okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah. That child could be my family. Yes. Amir is the apple of God's eye. And I believe with all my heart that he's being protected. I have an Amir box.
Okay.
And it has everything in it that was in my possession. So it has toys, the last socks he wore that I never washed, his winter jacket, which I was like, where is he? He needs his coat. It's getting cold, you know. and some of his last toys. I have pieces of him scattered throughout my house, on my mirror, on my desk at home, in my car. Yeah, I carry him. I'd like to say to you and to this, to this network that I'm glad that this is being revisited. We're not dealing with an evil, hateful person who just didn't want to be a mother, or who didn't, who needed her time and just got tired. Amir has always, and she has always had a family. I have been trying to figure out a way to come back to this place where we are now, where we can, where her care is, she's being cared for. Now it's time to try to find him.
WACH FOX's chief photographer, our news director, along with myself, packed up and hit the road, driving 8 hours to the headquarters for the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. It's located in Alexandria, Virginia. The center started using age progression technology in 1989. I met with forensic artist Christy Andrews. She's created countless age progression images for more than a decade. Many cold cases involving missing children have been solved with the help of age progression photos. This is why we partnered with the agency. These photos bring hope to hundreds of families as they watch their missing children grow up through pictures. Andrews created a photo of what Amir would look like if he were alive today.
When a child is eligible for an age progression, they are considered long-term missing. So when they have been missing for 2 years and they hit that 2-year mark, that's a long-term missing case now, and they're eligible for an age progression. If a child goes missing at age 2 and they're currently age 10, we don't want to just have images of them at 2. That's not going to help the public identify a child to get them recovered. We receive family reference photos. So before we even start an age progression, we're looking at heredity. So we're looking at the family, how the family ages, similar features that run through the family. Who does this child look like? Whose eyes do they have? Whose nose do they have? And we always say these are artistic opinions. They are never going to be 100%. So with Amir, he was 1.5, and babies, toddlers are a little more difficult to age progress because there's not a whole ton of facial definition at that age, but I had enough reference photos to be able to see similarities between mom and dad, different facial features. So it is a little more difficult because that's a 13-ish year jump in aging. Seeing the ears as well is very important. Ears are like fingerprints. They really don't change over the course of your life. They sort of angle in and stretch as your face grows, but that swirl pattern will stay the same your entire life. So we can see this outer shape, the outer silhouette of the ear is very similar to mom's. When I'm looking at the ear, his ears may not be an exact copy of mom's, or just dad's. And Amir has the same detached lobe and the same outer round curvature of the upper part of his ear here, which mom has. To want to create as close of an image as you can, because these families are desperate for help, and we want to help these families. We want to help law enforcement find these kids and get them recovered and get them back to where they need to be. The more people that see these images, the higher the chance of somebody knowing this child and getting them recovered. It just has to spark recognition in somebody that knows the child and says, you know what, I think I know who this is. I think I know this child. And then of course they call in.
Do you believe that this was more of a murder investigation as opposed to a missing boy?
Oh, without a doubt. I'm not quite sure what a missing child investigation looks like, but it was certainly, I know what it looks like when you are investigating a murder.
On a personal level, I just feel like the ball was dropped when it comes to Amir. I feel like more could have been done if they had known sooner. I feel like it should have been more investigation when it came to Amir's disappearance.
Zinah did lie to us, to investigators, about the whereabouts of her son, and then for the most part didn't answer any questions about her son after giving some misleading information. It was frustrating that the person who has the information about what happened to Amir, that'd be Zinah Jennings, to the best of my knowledge, didn't tell law enforcement, didn't tell her friends, and didn't tell her family what ultimately happened to Amir.
The police department sort of felt at one time, as a lawyer, I had a responsibility to find the child. And I made it very clear to them that that's your responsibility to find the child. My responsibility is to represent Zinah. And if you want to find the child, put up some money. I don't have any beliefs. I don't have any reason to believe that he's alive. I don't have any reason to believe that he's dead.
I don't believe she unalived Amir.
What do you mean by that? You don't believe that she harmed or killed Amir?
No, I don't believe that she killed him. I don't. I would never believe that she killed Amir.
So do you believe he's alive?
Absolutely, I do. Yes, yes, yes. I believe Amir is out there, and I believe, whether we find him, he will surface.
I feel like that Amir is somewhere alive. I feel like she took him from us because she didn't want us to have any type of contact with him. Because like I say, even as a baby, we didn't have that much contact with Amir. And it wasn't because we didn't want to as a family. It was because her and my son was no longer in a relationship. So therefore, she wouldn't allow him to have a relationship with us because they weren't in a relationship.
But the problem was they were always blaming Zinah as opposed to looking for Amir. And had the chief of police put up a larger reward, I dare say that somebody might have come forward with some information concerning him.
I know that my relationship that I have with God lets me know that I still have faith. I still have faith that one day.
Do you believe that Amir is still alive?
The investigation is still open, and he's considered a missing person. At this time, we are investigating the case based on what information that we have. And again, the person who really knows that is Zinah Jennings.
I'm your grandmother, Grandma Joss, and you have family in Columbia, South Carolina. Many doors that would open to you. All you have to do is knock. We love you. And we want to tell you about your family, and we want to share our story one day.
I'm glad to be able to sit here and talk about Amir, and I hope and pray that Amir, if he is watching this, to know that his grandmother loves him, his father, Roderick, still loves him, his aunts, and his sister, Kaylee, that we all love him. And when he comes back, we'll be here.
If you have any information that could help with this investigation, or if you believe you've seen someone who looks like this, you're urged to contact Crime Stoppers or the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. This cold case is still an open investigation, and family members on both sides want to know what happened to Amir. We'd like to thank the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children for producing this age progression photo of what Amir would look like if he were alive today. Jocelyn Jennings spoke with WACH FOX for more than an hour in this very studio, and she asked us not to release portions of that interview due to its sensitivity and the nature of the open investigation. We chose to honor her request. And for those of you wondering about Zinah's daughter, the one she gave birth to while she was on trial, family members tell us that she is thriving and is being well taken care of. That's it for tonight. Thank you for joining us for this WACH FOX special of Unforgotten, South Carolina. Where is Amir Jennings?